Hi, thanks for tuning in. Tina Campbell, the New York regional partner of Master Networks and the director of culture and retention for the company. And I'm just so thankful for the opportunity that I get to come here on this late night live and talk to members and other people, family, and things like that about what their journeys are and the culture that they keep. I just also want to take time to say thank you to all the recent guests that have been on, and I've tortured for an hour or so, and they've been awesome. And I've really learned so much from all of you. So thank you so much for everybody that was tuned in and made uh, the time to tune in and also to make comments and a lot of really support for our guests and certainly for me. And I just want to go back to what culture is from the first broadcast that we did with Dave Jenks and Susan Ubeck. And I think it was a great discussion. And it needs to just be brought back up one more time. And I think that is that the definition of culture as defined as an evolving set of collective beliefs, values, attitudes, and behaviors. And that's something that I know Dave Jenks was very strong on, that it is how you act within that culture. And I think one of the things with culture is that it has a huge impact on your strategic business decisions, and you can actually make them through the lens of the culture. And I've also learned from our guests that you can unpack your culture every day. It means that you can, start to relive it all the time. And I love speaking last week with Jeff Cartwright. He's a business coach. He's an entrepreneur, and he is also a area director for the Pennsylvania region. So that was a very interesting conversation, and I hope if you have a chance, if you didn't see it, you can go back and watch it, because it was a very, very interesting discussion. So what we're going to do here is we are going to bring on my next guest, special to me. He is a husband, a father of two girls, a research professional, that loves music. And I'd like to bring on my husband, Dan Campbell. Hello.
Hi, Tina. Hey, everybody. Thanks for
I
having me.
can't hear you. Oh,
Can't
there
hear
you
me?
are.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't, yeah, now I can. I didn't hear you. I mean, I didn't say that you're also the VP, Vice President of Ad Measurement for a company called Disco, and that's an online market research company. So,
Correct.
how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, disco. It's funny. I mean, I'm not sure, who's on the call here, but I've been around for a while. My career started in 1981, and I worked for all kinds of companies. Big companies and little companies, startups inside big companies, all sorts of companies. When I joined this company a year and a half ago, the name of the company, actually, before I actually joined, the company was named Active Measure, which is a very boring, researchy sounding name. Before I actually came on board, because I actually agreed to join about 4 or 5 months before I was officially hired, they changed the name to Disco. And it's interesting because I personally was not a huge disco fan of music, disco, but it had a bad connotation to me. But it's interesting because what we found is it really resonates with people, and people remember it. It's a lot better than Active Measure. So, and it's spelled differently. It's spelled DISQO, and the Q actually stands for, we're a market research company. We ask questions. That's basically what we do we track behaviors and ask questions, and the Q stands for questions. So anyway, that's
Oh,
just a little background there.
well, that's really interesting because, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. But so that's funny because I had said in my introduction of you that you liked music, but I should have said disco wasn't really your thing, but now you're
Uh,
working for a company named Disco.
exactly. It's a lot of my friends who've known me for a long time think it's pretty funny, but hey, uh, what are you going to do? It's great. The younger, I didn't think it was going to resonate, but the younger people and most of the people that we deal with in the business that I'm in now are much younger than me. In fact, I can be most of their fathers, most of those people's father. So for them, disco doesn't have the same connotation at all. So they like it. It actually is catchy. It's memorable. So
Well, I mean, one of the things that's funny is one of our members is, branding coach, and he would probably love it. I have to ask him if when he comes on about his opinion, but I think that I wanted to go back into what is online market research.
So market research is, and it's a funny thing because nowadays you can go to school to study market research. When I was in school, there was no curriculum for market research. It was you might take a class where they had you do a survey or something like that, but there was no market research specific discipline. I took business management and finance. Um, but what market research you think about any questions that you answer, whether it be an online survey or if ever gotten a telephone call to take a survey. Years ago, it was a lot of telephone, a lot of mail. In fact, it originally started with people going door to door many years ago. And basically, the idea is you're asking questions about their attitudes towards a particular topic, whether it be brands of or a particular type of product, or there are even like things like the census. That's a survey. That's market research. That's what we do. But everything we do is conducted on via the internet. Via the internet, whether it be most of it's done on the phone now, to be honest with you. And what we're doing is we're identifying individuals that meet a particular target of people that a brand or a company wants to reach, and we're asking them questions about whether it be an advertisement, a brand, whatever it might be. We're asking them questions, and that's basically what we do. My particular area is focused on the measurement of advertising campaigns.
So your clients are who?
So my focus is primarily media companies. So companies, whether it be Viacom or Fox, or even like more of the online media companies like Hulu is a client. It's a pretty diverse group of clients and advertising agencies. We also work with brands direct. So we do research for the it's not my client. The company does research for Purina and for P&G. Any company that needs information about what's happening in the marketplace, or information about their own customers, or information about their competitors, whatever it might be, that's who our business is focused on. My particular business is primarily media companies and advertising agencies because the focus is measuring advertising campaigns.
So I'm so glad you just explained that to me because I don't know that I ever knew that.
Well,
And well, I just want to say when the kids were little, they would be like, "What does Daddy do?" And I'm like, he works for the FBI because it was just easier to explain. I'm kidding, but no, not really. Because one of the things that was hard was that's kind of abstract, right? When it's not like daddy's a fireman or
exactly.
it's first responder. But it was funny. I want to go back to that when we first met. You had graduated from Long Island University, right?
Correct.
Already,
Yep.
and in marketing.
Correct. My undergrad was in marketing. You and I met. I was in graduate school also at Long Island University, but the undergrad was marketing, and then the graduate school was in finance.
Right. And I seem to remember, I remember being on Jones Beach, like helping you, like, I don't know, what were we doing with
Yeah,
surveys?
that was after we got married. Actually, and I was working when I first took that job at the publishing company at CMP, and there was a huge backlog of work that had to be done. And then my main job for the first month was just to get like 50 studies completed because they were just in various states of incompletion. So basically, you and I would actually go, and I was just basically working before computers, basic work before personal computers. So it was all stuff we were doing by hand. So I was doing what I was doing by hand. You were actually checking what I was doing to make sure it was as accurate as it could be. Because what we would do, believe it or not, and it's hard to believe we ever operated this way, but we would write everything out. It would go to a typing pool in the office, come back to you, you proof it, and then back to the typing pool. And then if it was to be printed, it went out to a printer. I mean, it's just complete.
Oh my
The
gosh.
time we spent on doing that kind of stuff in those days is just amazing. But that's how we did it.
So were you working for Grumman on Long Island, or was that afterwards?
No, I was working for
When
Grumman. When I met you, I was working at Grumman. So my first job
right.
out of college, when I started looking for a job in 19, I guess that was in, when did I join there? I think
80,
it was in March of 1981. Around there, I know I've been in the professional world for about 39 years now, but I think it was in March of 81 when I joined there. But when I got out, it was actually a very poor job market, and I was lucky enough. I mean, it's funny how you fall into things. I mean, like I said, I didn't go to school for market research, but the fact of the matter is, my father was a high-level policeman, um, a captain in
Nassau.
an inspector, actually, one of the leading in Nassau County, and he actually knew some people over at Grumman, which, you know, people on the phone, some people may remember Grumman, but at the time it was one of the biggest. It was the biggest employer on Long Island for many years. Built
Right.
many of the jets that were used in World War II for the Navy.
And
But
how about the LEM that landed on the moon? They
and
were
they later
instrumental
on
in
they did
making the
that too.
LEM.
Yeah, yeah, they built the LEM.
Yeah.
But so he actually ended up getting me an interview, and I actually got this job at Grumman. And it's interesting because when you talk about culture and all that, it was such a different world. That company was, I mean, it was huge. It was the biggest company. It was well thought of. Everybody loved them. They were so good to their employees, but it was a dying industry. You were in the industry too. And
I
it
know,
was
I
a
was going to
dying,
talk about that.
yeah, at that point in time, it was a dying industry. I mean, it was doing okay. It was back at that point. It was back during the Reagan era, and there was a bunch of money being put into the military. But that it just you could see the writing on the wall. It wasn't going to last. And
Yeah,
when I go ahead.
I was going to say, do you remember that you were working at Grumman, I was working at Harris
Yeah,
Corporation, another government contractor, and then the Challenger blew up.
yeah.
And both of us, I remember, we both looked at each other and we said, "Oh, these programs are going to probably, get cut down. We should go look for something in public sector." I remember talking about that.
It was a crazy. It was fun. I stayed at Grumman for. It was a good company in some ways, but it had seen its day, and I stayed there for 5 years. But I only stayed there that long because they were paying for me to go to graduate school. And once I was done, to be honest, I left. But yeah, it was a funny business because it was really, in those days, quite frankly, it was an old boy business. It was a lot of nepotism, a lot of people around that shouldn't have been around. I mean, there was a lot of waste in the business, and you could see it. And I knew it was not a place I wanted to be. I wanted to be somewhere a little more, exciting, and something that was happening and growing.
Yep.
So, I mean, I hate to say bad things about Grumman because it was a great
No,
company in its day,
yeah,
but it
absolutely.
doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, it doesn't even have any employees on Long Island. It used to be the largest employer on Long Island. It's not even on Long
Is
Island anymore, and it's owned. It was bought by Northrop. It's Northrop
Northrop
Grumman.
Grumman, yeah, I think they're I think they moved to like Maryland or Delaware, I remember, right? Something
Yeah,
like
they're in
that.
a few different places, Texas
Yeah,
as well. They're all over the place. But
yeah. By
anyway,
the way, Megan, our daughter, says hello. She
hello.
commented, said hi, mom and dad. She said, by the way, Megan said, "How did you get daddy to do this?" I said, "He's doing it for my birthday."
Yes,
Um,
happy
well,
birthday yesterday.
thank you. Had a really nice day. Thank you, and Emma and Megan for that. But one of the things that's interesting, so you and I, here we got married in '87, and also it was the height of the housing market, right? And you and I are like looking for, trying to find a place to live, and it was very expensive. And then that was June of 87. And anybody that remembers what happens in September of 87, there was like the market crashed.
Yep. Yeah, we
And
actually, yeah, we thought that because everybody was doing it for the previous like 4 or 5 years, we figured the thing to do was to buy a co-op. At the time was, either a condo or a co-op. We actually ended up buying a co-op. But what we didn't realize was, people who were buying co-ops for 30,000 and selling them for 90,000 3 years later. That was about to abruptly come to an end. So we bought and got in '87, and I think we took ownership after we got married. I think, right?
yeah, it was
Like
like
2
the
weeks
next
after.
month. Yeah,
So it was
something like that.
June of '87, and I think it was literally October of '87 when the bottom totally fell out of the market. It never came back. We had that place for
Yeah,
what, 10
not
years,
to
and it never came back. So
actually, we had it for 14 years, but we had some wonderful people that were allowed to sublet to. So
well,
we
we
lucked
lived
out with
there.
that.
We lived there for 6 years, and which was like three or four longer than we had planned to. But then we rented it. So in the end, it was okay. But anyway, it's just part of our history, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, it's. I think it's apropos for some of the things that are, well, not this pandemic, but just the overall ups and downs of everybody going through whatever the journey is. But so then, I think you decided you started working in publications, right? You
Yeah,
were
there was a
working.
there was a, there was a publishing company. So to take a step back, Grumman, actually, my job there, I worked in. So they were a defense contractor, but what they were trying to do, they saw the writing on the wall as well. They were trying to make a shift to get some business, some technology business, because it's very much a technology company, building building equipment for other companies, electronic equipment for other companies. They had all this plant capacity, and they wanted to get other business to build these other things for other companies. And I actually, the job I had at Grumman was to try to develop that new business, find places where we could actually bid on projects that people needed these electronics built. So I was in technology. I was always in technology for the first 5 years, and I really like technology a lot because it's always changing. It's fun. It's interesting. So I I was looking for a job in that field. I had known about this publishing company. It was a company called CMP. Again, it also doesn't exist anymore, but they were a fast growing. When I joined the company, I think it was about a $90 million company. And I stayed there for 10 years. When I left, it was just under $1 billion. And then it got sold a couple of years after I left. But the company was all about, and it was in the right place at the right time. It was all about publications about the technology business. So it was the right place at the right time for them. It was
And I
really
think
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think you liked working there. I think,
I loved
right? I mean,
working
it
there.
had it. So, what about like the culture there? I mean, I think it was forward thinking, right? They were looking at the new, like this new technology. I remember one of the magazines was like PC Magazine, right?
Well, they didn't do PC Magazine, but I can't remember the name of theirs. But it was
PC
they had
something.
we had we had it was all it was all tech, it was mostly technology publications that went to technology professionals. That was most of what we. But then we started to
Yeah,
shift more toward publications for consumers as well. And I can't remember the name of that publication, but we did on our
doesn't
personal
matter.
computer.
But I think yeah, I
But
think you were having fun, and I was working in Manhattan, right? You were on the island, and I was commuting into Manhattan. I
correct,
think I was
yeah,
working for Gray Advertising at the time, I believe. It's hard, right? Or one of the engineering firms that I was
I think it
working
was one of
for, I
the
think.
engineering firms.
Yeah. So, what did you think, like,
I think.
for, I don't know, who knows? We'd have to compare our resumes. It's funny, right? But so I just want to talk about, like, so CMP, the culture, like what you liked
The
about
culture.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it's really interesting. It was started by a couple in Manhasset, Long Island, and I don't know exactly how they began, like, what the original the idea was. But and it was, I can't remember her name. Jerry Leeds was his name though. But they started this, little company out of their living room, and it just took off. And they had a very much a they were really nice people, good people. They were really good to their employees. They were always trying to do more and more for the employees. They At one point they had we never had a chance to use it, but they had one of the first companies I knew of that had an on-site daycare. I mean,
Oh,
this was
yeah,
not
that's
a
right.
a little rinky dink operation. It was a full-fledged on-site daycare
Yeah,
that was subsidized. I mean, you had to pay for it, but it wasn't crazy.
yeah,
Um, but they did all that kind of stuff. I mean, they were just very good to the employees. Annual parties, holiday parties,
yeah,
paid people well. People liked going there. It was a very dynamic place, very mixed. Like, 'cause frankly, most of the management people were older in the that ran the technology publications and all that, but most of the rest of the company was a younger group, which I fit myself into in those days.
well,
Uh, but it was a fun place to work. It really was. I mean, it was a fast growing, fun. It was hard at times. I mean, we worked hard, but it was the reward was there. It was fun. It was a good place to go to work every day.
and I think you learned a lot there, right?
Totally.
You
I definitely
really
learned a lot. I met a lot of people. Well, it's interesting because for all of those years, I spent 5 years at Grumman and then 10 years at CMP. I was always a hands-on research person. So I was the one that was actually talking to clients and determining what type of research we were going to do. What kind of questionnaire were we going to, what questions do we need? How are we going to do it? How are we going to get it done? But I was also very much aligned with the salespeople. So a company like CMP makes their money by selling advertising, right? You sell the ads,
yeah,
right? And one of the ways you get somebody to buy the ads, like the publications that you get that you don't pay for, they make their money by selling advertising. So what we were doing was the salespeople were going out selling advertising. I would accompany them a lot of the times, and we would part of what we would offer them to advertise with us was a survey, right? We'd actually do research for you. So I was always out with the salespeople, and I just knew it was at CMP where I realized, you know what? These guys, the sales guys, are making all the money. They're really happy. I mean, I like this job, but they're really happy. I think I want to try to move. So it was there that I actually realized that while I'm not a born sales guy, I could never sell used cars. What I do now is 100% of my time pretty much is spent selling, but it's a different kind of sales. I mean, I can
yeah.
sell research, this type of research, because I like it, I understand
And
it,
you know it. Yeah,
and I know it, and yeah, I'm comfortable with it, and I'm surrounded by people who know it really well because it's
yeah,
very highly technical. So I don't know all of that, and it changes all the time, but it's fun because it is always changing. So I'm sorry, I kind of went off there, but the point was at CMP, because of the kind of company it was, it gave me the opportunity to move more towards sales. I realized I wanted to, and I started to toward the
yeah.
end of that time.
Yeah, I remember we had conversations about it because you were concerned. You were like, I think I really want to go and see what I could do in sales. And I think I have to say one thing is that I think, and through your entire career, you've known a lot of the same people
Yep.
because of the fact that you are a research person first and then sales second,
Yeah.
and you understand what your clients want and need. So they relate to that. And I have to say one thing about you, good or bad, you're an extremely honest person.
Oh, thank
So,
you.
well, I mean, I knew that about you when I met you. And so that's the thing, so if I have a bad hair day, you might not say anything, but I can see it in your face. But the most important the most important thing is that, like, they know they can count on what you say. It's like your reputation and you know that was the most important. I think that's the most important thing to you over the sale.
Yeah, agree, absolutely. And the reality is, sales is all about it's all about the amount of outreach you do, but that outreach is a lot easier when you know people and those people know you and like you and they
And
respect you, and they will
trust.
also refer you to people that they know that could use you. Or, I can ask a lot of those people, look, I'm trying to get to somebody in this company. Can you help me do it? You just know that it's that network, of people that allows you to really to grow the business. I mean, and you're right. I mean, some of the people that I'm working with today, we laugh about it, but I knew them 30 years ago.
Yeah, and I
So,
always hear the same names come up a lot. And I mean, most recently, you're working with Steven, who is like one of your like best friends because you guys worked together for what, 17, 18 years all in different iterations,
right,
right? And now, I think he brought you into your current
correct,
position, which wouldn't have happened unless you networked and you knew him as a person, as a friend,
correct.
and you guys are just doing great right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're really it's we spent it's I don't know if you wanted me to shift into sort of what's happening now, but
Well,
a Disco again is a Disco is a company that's been around since 2014, and it was started as what's known as a panel company, and what that means is we have an audience of people that we maintain. We actually recruit individuals to be part of this audience, and those individuals are paid basically to take surveys. This company does a really, I mean, I've seen many companies in this business that do this. This company does it extremely, extremely well. But so basically, what the company's business was selling those individuals to other research companies. So they weren't really a research company; they were what's known as a panel
panel
company,
company, yeah.
right? So you have a panel of people. So what happened was, this Stephen, who is Stephen Jepson, who's she's referring to, who I've known for years, is one of the really smartest people I know in the advertising measurement business. He met them and he said, you guys have this great platform, but we could build this. We can build this platform to measure advertising campaigns, um, and um, and they talked for a long time, and they ended up hiring him, and then he brought me over. And
Yeah,
this is what
that
we
was
did. We
great.
did it. We did it once before. And thing about Steven is he knows all the nuts and bolts of the technology. He knows basically the whole business from beginning to end, whether the nuts and bolts of the technology right up to the sales part of it. It's pretty
Yeah.
amazing what he knows, and the partnership
But
between me and him has just been, for years. It's just been really, really. It
right.
works great. It just works
Yeah.
great. Somebody asked me, why does it work? I don't really know. It just does.
And you have a lot of fun because I hear
We
you
have a
guys
lot of
laughing all the time. I'm like, I can't make him laugh like Steven can. One of the things though is I want to talk about this is a very, would you say it's a young company? I mean, as
yeah,
far as the people that are in the company, right? You
yeah,
guys
yeah.
are kind of like, are you guys like I thought maybe it was they hired you because you look like Santa Claus.
Well, somebody, yeah, there's actually somebody did call me Santa Claus. Actually, the thing that stuck more recently is Sean Connery. But anyway, I, whatever. But which actually, I don't know. I guess I can see it. It's probably better than Santa Claus. Um, but
Oh, that's a good one.
yeah, I'm
Somebody
sorry.
said I look like Martha Stewart's sister, so I don't know. That's quite a
Um,
combination.
sorry, I'm sorry. The question I lost. Oh yeah, the
I know,
culture.
so but
So
the young people, right?
yeah, so I don't know this for sure, and I don't really want to, you know,
No,
I don't really want to dig too deep into it in my company
no,
because
no,
nobody
of
needs to
course.
know. But I don't think I'm the oldest person. I think I'm the second oldest person in the company. So we're about 140 people, growing. The company's headquartered in Glendale, California, which is within the LA area, um, and it the average age in that company, if it's 30, I'd be surprised.
Yeah. And
It's
so it has
really,
that
really,
it has that vibe, right?
it
That
has,
young
yeah,
vibe
totally
where
has that vibe.
they do a lot of things together and
Yeah.
they
I
have do
mean,
they have
it,
foosball or something?
they have, all kinds of stuff in the office there, although nobody's been in the office for quite some time. But
Yeah.
yes, the
Yeah.
office is very, it's very
Hip.
active, friendly, all that fun stuff. But, it also has its downside. I mean, I'm not, I'm used to things kind of like just, getting done. And, and the business that Stephen and I are in is different than the business the company had before. It moves a lot faster. Like we always say, because everything we do is based on the internet, the web. And we say, our business moves at the speed of digital, and we have to move like that. Like everybody, in the company is used to having, a project's going to come in, get 2 weeks to set it up. We don't get 2 weeks. I mean, we're lucky if we get 2 days, because it's the way that the business moves, because we're the
Yeah.
last guy in the line, because the advertiser decides they want to run a campaign. They work with the advertising agency. They find the media companies to place the ads. And the last thing they think about it, oh, we have to measure this. So it's like it's ready to go. And then they're like, oh, shoot, we got to find somebody to measure this. So we have to move really fast. And that has been a big challenge for us to get the company to move like that.
Yeah.
It's happening, but it's
Yeah.
just it's
Yeah,
just
just
not the
everything takes time.
it
Yeah.
takes time.
And
Yeah. And plus, it
and
took us a while to get the business, to the point where, you know, I mean, now there's a lot of business coming in, so we need the
yeah,
support now. We need the team there behind us to to put it in place, if you know what I
right.
mean.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the same thing. I mean with all of the businesses that we've been in. I know Corey Bauman's on here. He's our COO. He's saying, "Nice to meet you, Dan." By the way, we have neighbors and friends. Sammy's mom, Helena's on. Say hi to her. And a lot of people are on and saying hi. And Rob Genovese, the brand coach that I was telling you about, he's calling you 007. So I think we have a new we have you never know what this is going to create. It's going to be your new nickname when
There
you
you
see
go.
everybody at the holiday party, or hopefully we'll have a holiday party. They'll be like 007. Would you like that shaken or stirred?
Oh shoot!
But
You know
anyway,
what? I just, for some reason, I only just put it together. Sean Connery. Okay, sorry. Got it.
we're a little slow on the uptake. It's past your bedtime.
It is past my bedtime.
I know. So the funny thing is that I want to go back to when you and I met. I was in college in upstate New York, and you said you were going to school for your master's at Long Island University, and I we met up at college because one of your best friends sister lived with me, and you guys were all coming to go skiing.
Correct.
And what I was trying to remember is if I don't think much skiing got done that weekend with everybody hanging out, but I think I did. I think we talked for like hours, but I have a recollection that maybe I talked for hours.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was always the case. Certainly in the earlier days of our courtship, I guess I'd say. Yeah, that was a funny. When I think back on that, actually, a lot of skiing, the decent amount of skiing did get done, believe it or not. Because I remember the first night we got there, the party broke out at your house, I guess. And
After
I
hours.
remember, I remember that it went on for so long that the sun came up and somebody said, "Oh shoot, we probably should get a couple hours sleep before we go skiing." So we went. We had, because we were sleeping somewhere else. So we actually left and slept for like 2 hours, went skiing, and then came back to your house and started all over again. But can't do that anymore.
No, 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 not at all. But but the one thing, like I was thinking about this because one of the reasons it made it easier to be friends is because even though you met me upstate, we lived in the same town,
Right. We lived
right?
five. We grew
Basically,
up 5 miles from each other, but we never knew
yeah,
each
and
other.
we right, we didn't know each other, and so they're all making fun of me over here because about talking for hours, but I knew they would. But the funny thing was is that so when you're like in proximity, right? So you're like you guys would call and say, hey, you and some girlfriends want to come out with us, and we'd all go out and we'd have a great time with a whole bunch of people, and just everybody got along great. Everybody was having fun, and I think one of the things that you and I had in common was that we liked music,
Right.
but and pretty much the same music. I think back then it was like Southern rock. It was
Well,
rock and roll, Southern rock.
yeah. I mean, I think it was honestly, it was anything but from my perspective, dance music. But Southern rock sort of went through the mid '70s. That was my genre. But anyway, yeah, it was kind of new rock and roll, um, classic rock and roll, and new rock and roll. I think is we were both sort of into the same thing, which was great.
And I think what's happened, it's funny now because you're still like, you'll go out and like be really interested in seeing new music. You're kind of still out there, still listening, have friends, who will go with you to like the Cap or one of the local, well, you did before this whole thing happened,
Right.
but it was kind of funny, right? Because I feel like I got stuck like in the 70s and the 80s, and you kind of evolved with music wise.
Yeah, I mean, but I think our tastes are a little bit different now. I mean, uh, you're more of a country fan than I am. I don't hate country. It's just not my favorite. I still like classic rock, and I like current bands that are rock and roll bands. So it's a little, and I don't dislike country. I like some country a lot. I just don't like a steady diet of it. That's all.
I know. So Pasquale said this was a quote from Greg Allman saying, "Calling us Southern rock is just like calling us rock rock."
There
Whatever
you
that
go.
means.
That works.
And my brother's on saying hi. That's the whole thing I have to say about this is a family. It's an extended family. Dan, you've been to our holiday party, and I think we had smushed in how many? Like we had like 100 and something people smashed into a room that we just didn't expect everybody to show. I know you were kind of sitting in the corner talking with Sammy's husband, Michael,
Yeah.
and it's a bit overwhelming when everybody's, gets to like they feel like they know you from probably my stories, right? And they're
Mhm.
coming up to you and saying all kinds of things, and you're like, "Who are these people?"
Yeah,
Right?
well, I've met a lot of them. It's funny. One thing I will say that as a salesperson, that is not my forte, which is probably not a good thing. Is I'm not the best when it comes with remembering names. It hasn't hurt me, but that happens a lot. Like I've met so many people, and then you see, I have to meet people several times before the names stick. Even like my company I work for now, I've been there for a year and a half, but I've only been to the LA office, you know, 4 times maybe. And I go there, it's like I just can't remember. I met all these people already. I can't remember the names. It drives me crazy, but it'll happen over time.
Well, right, but it's funny. Like I think especially through this pandemic, where I'm getting so close to everybody on Zoom. Like you see me on Zoom, like what, 12 hours a day,
Yeah, Josh, it's amazing to me. I wouldn't be able to do it.
talking,
I mean, I'm
talking,
on.
talking.
We're obviously doing everything on Zoom. Well, web conference calls as well, mostly Zoom, but all kinds of platforms. But it's not like you're just one after another where we're not. I have to stop and do work on projects and things like that in between. So I may have 4 or 5 calls a day, but they're typically about 30 minutes, give or take. So
It's funny. Maggie's saying that I remember everyone's name, and what they do, but I have to tell everybody a little secret. Don't tell anyone. Sometimes I can't remember names of people that I know. It's like they're like I go to introduce somebody and then I embarrass myself and I'll be like, oh my God, I've known you for 10 years, but what's your name? But I can remember like facts about them. I can remember like where somebody said their child goes to college. It's one of these things. It's really good because I'll remember the last time I spoke to somebody and what we were talking about. So I can kind of lead off with that. And I think it makes people feel that I'm uh, into them.
well,
Here's funny. It's
uh,
funny. Mark Ryan wants to know where Steve Harvey is because he's my friend from the Colorado region, the regional partner. He's from New York, lives in Colorado, and he's convinced that this was going to be a Family Feud. Sorry to disappoint you, Mark, but we have a lot of funny people on here. One of the things I think was that we always had, I think you and I always did have the same work ethic. It's probably
Yeah.
worked too much,
Yeah. I mean,
you know?
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's like it's always been just like, you hired me to do something, and I got to figure out and do whatever I got to do to get the job done.
Yeah.
Um, I might not be the smartest person in the room, but I'll work harder than them and beat them to the end line most likely. And that's the way I sort of always approached it. I mean, just do what you got to do, get it done. That's what you're being paid for, and move on. So
Yeah. So I think, and I appreciated that, because imagine if we had one of us that was like, oh, why are you working so much? I mean, it was always like whatever we had to do to get the job done, both of us too. And when
yeah,
we had the kids, it was the same thing. It was like, if I had to go do something or work late, you're like, okay, I'll pick them up, I'll do whatever. And I think that really worked well. And we've been really lucky in our choices of, from, when we moved at the right time. I think the jobs that we've had, the luck that I had in meeting, Dave Jenks, and, getting involved with, Free Enterprise Warriors, and then both of us going to Master Networks. I just think that this whole thing, I'm not saying it's all luck, but I mean, we worked super hard, and I think that showed, and, Rob Genovese says he calls it grit,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
and
that's a good description of it. I think it's true. I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it I think comes from the way you're brought up too. I mean, I know, the way your dad was, and I know how my family was. You
yeah,
it's just the way it was. I mean, you were expected to do what you were expected to do, and that's
do it.
do it. Just do it and get it done. And if you don't like it, go do something else. But you know, that's sort of the way I think we were both brought up.
Yeah, but do you remember my father, who came from Latvia? He was, immigrated over here, so we were first generation. Remember, every time we got even like a little raise, like a little promotion, something, he'd be like so proud, right? And
Yeah,
he would go in the closet where it was warm, and he'd get out the cold duck. Do you remember that? Which is like horrible pink champagne. Like he'd have them in these little. Do you remember that? And he'd bring us,
I don't
get the
really
cold
remember the
duck,
cold duck, but I remember him always wanting to celebrate things like that.
but it wasn't cold. It was just duck.
Warm duck.
But you know what? I miss that, now that he's gone, because, and I have to tell you, it's like, I know that one of the things I was always working towards was, I loved making my parents proud. I mean, it didn't matter what I was doing. I would always love to do that, because they celebrated all of it. And they
Yeah,
celebrated it for you too. I mean,
right.
you got sucked into that, and I think that my father really treated you like a son.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, not that I had a bad upbringing or anything, but there wasn't a lot of that took place in my house, so it was definitely refreshing to experience that when I joined your family. So
Yeah, and the talking and the loudness at the dinner tables. I remember being at your house, and I loved your parents, but they were big, huge Yankee fans, New York Yankee
well, you
baseball
had to be. You
fans.
weren't allowed not to be. So
Right. And so I would go over and have dinner with your parents in the early days, and they wouldn't talk because the Yankees were on, and we'd be sitting at the dinner table watching the TV, and I just wasn't that interested. So I was just starting to talk, and I think your parents are like, okay, whatever, shut her up.
oh,
But
it wasn't really my mom. It was my dad. It wasn't really her. I mean,
no,
she liked them because she had to watch it all the time. So she loved Derek Jeter, but um,
no, she loved Andy
oh,
Pettit.
Andy Pettit. I'm sorry. That's right. You're right.
Oh, oh my
But
God. I mean,
anyway,
she loved him. And I think it was just funny because that kind of, I think we both had kind of that middle class kind of upbringing.
yeah,
And one of
totally.
the things, do you remember when the parents met each other the first time?
Yeah,
That was hilarious, because I just remember at the end of the evening, your father kissed my father on the top of his head.
Yeah, I remember that. Oh, a few drinks were involved, but
Just a
not too
few.
many, but a few drinks were
No.
definitely involved. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember I was thinking that this is going to be interesting. We're going to have to sit there at the table with them and kind of monitor this whole thing. And at one point, I remember you and I looked at each other and said, you know what, let's just get up and walk away and see what happens. And I think we went downstairs for a little while, and they were laughing away and chatting, and all worked out fine. Because I mean, talk about people that were from two couples that were from completely different backgrounds, but it worked.
Yeah, it did. And for many years when we lived in Huntington, before we moved up here, we'd have them all over, and they got along great. They would look forward to getting together. So that was really, and then the kids came along, and it was some really good times. You know,
Agreed. It
but
was.
I think making the move up to Westchester for us was very good.
Yep, I
I think
agree.
it was really timely, and and one of the reasons we did it was because of really the opportunities, especially for you, because now you're in sales and you're working, you know, for these companies, and you had more opportunities by coming to Westchester. You could get to the city, you could get
Yeah,
to
I mean,
Connecticut,
the goal was to
easier.
try. Yeah, my goal was to try to avoid having to have a job for 20 years that I had to commute into New York City every day at 7 o'clock in the morning and be home at 7 o'clock at night. I tried to avoid that, which I did for the most part. I did it two different times for a year or two each time. And I go to the city a lot. Well, not I haven't in a while, but I spent a lot of time in the city. But I make my own schedule. So as far as meetings and things, I love going to the city. I mean, I'm just hoping it all comes back. Um,
Yeah,
you know, after all this mess. But I
yeah.
love going there. I love going to see clients, but I don't want to have to go there every day. It's too much of a grind, especially at my age. I don't want to do it. So,
Yeah, I did
but
it for a while. When we lived in Queens, I was doing it, and that was before kids, though.
right.
I just figured that it was just not something that I wanted to do once we had the girls.
But
And you have to.
one of the reasons we moved there was though that gave you a pretty easy commute at that
Oh,
point to the
Queens.
city.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I had a 20-minute drive one way, and you had a 25-minute train ride the other way. So,
Yeah. No, that was
and the
that
train
was really
station was
good.
across the street.
Yeah, and remember we could hear if it was going. We could actually hear the loudspeaker from our apartment to see
Yep.
if it was the train was going to
And
be
you could make
delayed.
the train. Yeah.
I hear it. Um, but so also, when we talk about moving up and giving you and myself opportunities, when we moved up here, I became, I stopped working for corporations, and I started working like I worked for Mark Boylan for a while and Keller Williams, and that's how I met Dave Jenks, and that moved on to Master Networks, and all of that became became entrepreneurial. And the
Yeah.
thing is, I always wondered, like, so, and you stayed corporate,
Yeah, but
so
yeah, I mean, when I look at what I've done, different jobs I've had, I mean, I've worked for, big, stodgy, gigantic corporations, and I've worked for, middle-sized companies and small companies and startups. I mean, I've had 10 different jobs, and they've been, very diverse size companies. My real preference is a small startup company, a small startup type company that's inside of a bigger company, but not a huge company. And that's what we have now. I mean, we're probably about a $25 million company at this point, but we're only a $2 million piece of it. But everybody's banking on this part of the company to be the big part of the company in 5 years, and
right,
that's the goal, because the main business of the company is not going to continue to grow the way it has grown over the past, since they formed. It's just not going to. It's just the business is not there. So they have to do something else with this great platform they developed. And with Steven's help, they figured something out. So,
yeah. And I mean, you've only been doing that for a year,
a year and a half
a
we've
year and
been
a
doing it.
half,
Yeah.
right? And you guys kind of shut down a little bit during, what was it, like March, April, a
Well,
little bit.
we started last year. We had nobody knew who we were. Stephen and I know everybody in the business as far as the clients are concerned, but nobody knew who we were. So we had to spend all of last year traveling and, me mostly going into New York City, but some travel as well, but him flying out here because he lives in San Francisco area. But we had all last year was all about getting the name out. And just toward the end of last year, after like 10 or 11 months, it really started to take off. And then
Yeah.
January, February of this year, it really started to happen. And the bottom fell out. The bottom fell out of the whole thing in the middle of March. And that lasted for about 5 or 6 weeks. And, obviously we were really worried that, it was going to kill the business, but it's back now. It's right now it's going better than it was in January. We're going to have our biggest month ever this month. So,
It's interesting, right? Because I've been having a steady growth of, the region, of Master Networks region in New York over
yeah.
the past, 2 months, really, I guess, once it kind of leveled out and people, were coming and going a little bit, but now it's just kind of steady. And it has to do with the team that we have, at Master Networks. It has to do with every person in Master Networks. Somebody's telling somebody about it. And, that's why there's so many phone calls and there's so many Zooming and there's so much going on, because we're trying to create not just, the basis for the Master Networks, but the opportunities that the people, can have with each other during this time. It's really interesting to see how some of the local businesses are switching, some of the entrepreneurs that are inside of, the larger companies that we that have to create their book of business inside of their own, their own work. It's really interesting. And I really feel for, everybody, because of obviously everybody's worried. But, I just think that the silver lining is this, it's these relationships. And, one of the things I really, my brother wants to know if Emma's typing the subtitles. So one of the things that I think that, I wanted to bring you on, because as I was joking around before, is that, you do exist and you're in the background and you're helping me out by supporting me. Sometimes it's funny. I'll have the Zoom, I'll have the background on, and like a hand comes in and puts like a cup of coffee on my desk. That's Dan, just in case anybody wanted to know. Or Emma will be making me a smoothie, and the smoothie just kind of floats in and goes on the desk there. And I just really wanted to say thank you to you and to the girls for supporting me to be able to support all these wonderful people, because there's a ton of people here that are listening, but that are beyond this, that are not here, but they I think they'll say thank you to me, but I need to say thank you to you,
well,
because you know
well, you're welcome and thank you. I mean, yeah, you do. I mean, you keep very interesting hours, I must say, work wise. I mean, it's actually pretty amazing to me because you never used to be a morning person. You were more of a night person. Now
still
you're sort
am.
of during the week. You're both. It's crazy. I mean, and it's it's all work for the most part. But but anyway, no, I'm. It's a mutual thing. It works.
Yeah, and that's what's important, because, and the kids have been, they'll do work for me. When they were little, I don't know if you remember this, but on the days when, I think Megan was 5 and Emma was 2, and Megan used to get out the fax machine, and I showed her how to like send faxes when we had fax machine. Remember that one we had in the kitchen in the house we had when we first
Yeah.
moved up here?
Yep.
And she'd get that out and she would do the faxing for me, and I taught them that, and I'd be like, okay, here, fill out this FedEx form. And they were just great about it. And everybody, I just feel like we all work together, and that's what was really help. And Maggie says, thanks, Dan, for being such a supportive force. And I mean that they know that. And I couldn't do this without you. The last, you remember when, and then we're going to wrap up, but I just want to say one thing. Do you remember, I think it was the week of March 5th, when I felt like everything was going to just
Yeah.
collapse, right?
That's when it all kicked in here. Yeah.
But do you remember that I couldn't talk for like 3
Yeah.
days?
Yep.
And you kept saying, "What's the matter?" And I was like, "I can't talk about it." You were like, what are you talking about? You can't talk about it. I'm like, I can't talk about it. I had to process it, or I had to kind of maybe mourn what it was, to figure out what it was going to be. And I think that was, and I appreciate this because you were just kind of looking at me like, what is going on? And I just needed to just get my thoughts straight. And again, we've gone through, ups and downs of as everybody has, but mostly ups. And how lucky are we, to be here? And I just, again, thanks, Dan.
Sure,
I
I
really
agree.
appreciate it.
Thank you, and I hope I hope it was interesting for people. And I guess
Well, you know what? It was interesting to me. Was it interesting to you?
it was.
Okay, that's all that matters. All right, no,
All
because it's
right.
all about us. No, I just want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in tonight.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We love you all. We are thankful for everything, and we're gonna end the broadcast and let everybody get some sleep. All right, thanks, hon.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, great.